And we have our panel waiting just beside me here. Moderator Stephen Douglas is going to join us on stage. He's the Market Lead Environment Future Communities Leader of NZAP at GHD. He is leading our panellists, Saya Latu, Brad Parker, and Louise Nash, and I'll leave them to do their fulsome introductions, but for now, please welcome them to the stage.
Oh, this is a big chair.
These are very big seats.
They are. Right. Kia ora tātou. Ko Stephen Douglas, toko ingoa, no Tamaki Makaurau oho, ke te noho ki o tōtahi, no reira, tēnā koutou katoa. So I just wanted to welcome you all to session 3. This is a fantastic session we have here with some amazing panellists who I'll introduce to you all in a second. Look, GHD is very pleased and proud to be supporting the session. Circular economy is certainly at the heart of what we want to do when we look at future communities. And as we just heard from Professor Gluckman, really around engaging with our communities and people are really at the heart of what we need to be focusing on when we think infrastructure investment and outcomes. So without further ado, I will do a brief introduction to our speakers, and then I will ask them to also provide a little bit of personal introduction to themselves before we get underway with some, hopefully some insightful questions and answers to leave you with. So immediately to my left, we have Louise Nash. So Louise is the CEO and founder of Circularity, and through that she aims to radically redesign the future of the economy to be carbon positive, regenerative and circular. She is a strategic partner to leaders worldwide and develops bold visions, builds out capability, co-design solutions with stakeholders and measures their impacts using the best practical tools and approaches. She has over 20 years of experience in global strategy, brand development, human-centred design thinking and environmental strategy. So did you want to add something to that, Louise, in terms of a personal...
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. So kia ora koutou infrastructure community. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you, Stephen, for being our moderator, for stepping up, and to my fellow panellists for making the time. Shout out to a few people I know in the room. Nice to see some friendly faces. So I guess for me, I grew up here in Tamaki Makaurau. They say the longer you stay in one place, actually the more you see. So I started my life out at Otahu. My grandparents were awarded land post-war and started the market garden industry with tomatoes and strawberries out there in Otahu. You don't see it any longer. And now I reside in Mangawhao, just around the corner, under the watch of our beautiful manga and along the shores of Waitemata Harbour. My background's actually in law and economics, but I actually never made it past the legal interview because what I found out much later, and for many of you might be in the same situation where your vocation kind of comes out later on in your career, but I really found out that I was what I call now a systems designer, because I have a real love and sensitivity to how everything is connected, how we connect to each other, how we connect to our environment, and how do we connect through things with each other. I love deep problem analysis. I love really understanding the root problems. And I really love designing solutions for the biggest problems that we're facing the world today, and I love doing that collaboratively. That's why working in the circular economy space actually feels like home to me. And I invite you all to come and work in that space.
Great. Thanks, Louise. To the left of Louise is Brad Parker. Brad is a circular economy lead and logistics and waste lead for AECOM across ANZ, and a leader in circular economy and waste management with over 12 years' experience in the industry, both as a consultant and equipment manufacturer. Brad has led strategy development and implementation for a wide range of sectors, particularly government advisory, commercial, strategy development, healthcare, aviation and tertiary. So Brad, I invite you to expand on that from a personal...
Thank you. And hello, everyone. Well, it's a great little blurb because I wrote it myself. It really sums it up. So I've been around for a while now. I started making waste equipment a long, long time ago and fell into the industry. Started to see that it wasn't well managed, and of course it was called waste and still remains to be, and that resources thinking wasn't really embedded at all. There was a gap in that thinking, and over time it just grew and grew and grew as more and more industry partners, more and more people were interested in waste minimisation, as it was back then, and slowly as it became into the circular economy, how to implement it is really my passion. Strangely enough, I would count myself as a cynic. I have a background with an engineering degree, I have a master's in business, all of which tell you to be conservative. They tell you to be a cynic in everything that you read and see. But I think that adds a really interesting perspective, because the laggards and the ones that aren't coming along the journey first and foremost are the ones that we need to take that cynical view with. And we need to understand how the circular economy can be viewed by them and be implemented by them in the way that they see value in it. So it's a really, really interesting space. I love being in it, and I'm going to love continue being in it.
Right, thanks, Brad. And Saya Lati, so Saya, born in Tonga, grew up in South Auckland and left school in the fourth form and started work at 14. Well done. With more than 2 decades of experience in deconstruction, civil infrastructure and maintenance, Saya's focus is to create a circular economy where businesses can benefit and help Māori and Pacifica communities while providing them with the support and opportunities that they wouldn't typically have. So anything else you want to add, Saya, from a...
I was going to add anything, but since they added something, I might as well follow it.
Go on.
Malolei, ko ngā ko sa whina o lātou, ko hau mei tanga, mei ni taua, ka whamaloa pito ki mana whenua, ke kere ko to iai ahoni, mo Ngāti Whātua. Hey everybody, thank you for the introduction. It's amazing that I get invited here today, and I hope it's not because you couldn't find anybody else. But hey, look, it's I fell into this. I didn't wake up one day and say, hey, look, I'm going to do this. It wasn't a goal, wasn't. But I lost something very close to me 6 years ago, my brother, and then my whanau having a son at the same time, all in 1 week. And that changed for me about how to do business, how to do good business, make heaps of money, lots of it, because you can't help people when you're poor. And decided to get involved in the circular economy, which at the time, I didn't understand it myself, that that's something that Pacifica has been doing in Māori, has been doing it for generations. It's just somebody gave it a new name. So yeah, I wanted to create a business where I can make lots of money, keep giving back and redesign waste.
Yeah, kia ora. Just to set the scene a little bit, in case you weren't aware, New Zealand's really poorly placed at the moment in terms of its position with circularity. So a couple of stats I managed to glean when trawling through the internet. Out of the MFE, their report on sort of the waste reform, some of the background states that as a country we have one of the highest generators of waste per capita in the world, and we're basically the 3rd highest generator of municipal waste, whilst in 2019 we are the 2nd worst recycling nation in the OECD. So we're starting from a pretty low bar. So my first question to the panel, and we start with Louise on this one, is what is meant by circular economy? How do we define it? And how does this relate to the infrastructure industry in New Zealand?
Yeah. I guess some of the stats that you're raising about waste sit alongside our statistics around emissions, around the degradation of our environment, of our rivers, our lakes, our lands, and the impact that that has on livelihoods. And so for me, what you're describing there is the linear economy. We're going to see negative externalities. We're going to live through negative externalities if we continue to extract what is 100 billion tonnes of virgin resources a year out of the earth, because that's our planet, that's what we call home, that's what everyone is reliant upon. So how is the circular economy different? So how I define a circular economy is, I start by saying it's a new economic system, because I think what gets missed when we talk about a circular economy is the new business models that we have to shift to, because we have to be thinking about how we are going to be using our resources better. And the only way to do that is if the way we're charging, the way we're taxing, and the way we're managing our resources so that they can be used in perpetuity, they can drive resource and reuse use, they can be recovered, they can be recycled, they can be remade. But that's only one part of it. Keeping materials in flow and in use is one of the second circular economy principles. The first one is actually design it out in the first place. And it's based on the insight, and there's been a few people that have tried to track down the insight, but it essentially says, it's become folklore now. It says that 80% of the environmental impacts of pretty much everything is baked in at the decision-making stage, at the design stage. So the design of our economy, so our regulations and our policy, the design of our projects, the design of our homes, all of those decisions are made. So let's design out the impacts from the outset. And the third principle of the circular economy is around regenerating living systems. And that includes humans, because we're a subset of the environment. And so by regenerate living systems, the circular economy in its applied form has the opportunity to draw down carbon, to regenerate those systems that do that job for us, to restore that, and ultimately restore and heal ourselves as well, and the health of our people. So that's how I define it.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Brad, did you want to add anything further to that?
Follow that one.
Yep.
So I'm going to put my cynic hat back on, as I usually do, and I'm going to boil it down to one word, which is value. So the circular economy, no matter how you put it, no matter how you read it, no matter how you look at it, there is value in everything it provides. So you have value in resilient supply chains, you have value in providing jobs, you have value in improving the environment for a community, and you have value to a country as a whole because of those things. So if we can boil it down to the value that the circular economy provides, we can take the cynics and the late adopters along with it, because it's well and truly proven that to be at the forefront of these things, or even somewhere in the middle, you are making your business more resilient by acting in positive environmental ways. Lots and lots of studies, lots and lots of evidence to that. You can be the largest cynic you ever want to be, you can care nothing about the environment, but the studies prove that if you are providing value, like you provide value through a circular economy, your business is more resilient. So what I like to impress and what I like people to take away about the circular economy is at its heart, it is about value and delivering that value out to a community.
Thanks, Brad. And Sarah?
I think they've said it all.
Yeah.
Hey, look, it's great hearing, all the positives, but I want to speak from a business person, but I want to speak from my heart. It's 'cause this is quite important. Why I chose to be here, because yes, it's got a value circular economy, but as a business, or if you're working in the big business, we need to find those values, and those values will come from contracts, right? So for me, I'm being direct and saying we need to have a look at the circular economy. It's a nice word to throw around, but how do we, whether you're a CEO or a director, bring those value into the business? Because those values is actually our taxpayers that we help. I hope that makes sense, because a lot of us overlook that. We're saying it's the community. It's all of us with the taxpayer. Are you making money with those values? How does the circular economy work? Well, if you're doing great things, you should be paid for it. If you're doing great things, you should be valued for that. So I think we need to really have a look at ourselves and say, look, what value can I bring, but not jeopardize the business or my position? How do you work on that? That's something that I obviously for you today we'll get to that bit, but it's something to think about.
Yeah, great, thank you. Probably just following on from that, and a question, maybe Brad, you want to start off with, in terms of, why is the shift so important to make?
Well, I think we've got all the statistics, and I think everyone's read in the room. We know that a reduction and an embrace of the circular economy on a global scale, we can reach our global temperature rise or get closer to. With circular economy initiatives alone, the statistic is that gets to 2 degrees. Naturally, our Paris Accord target is 1.5. We're almost there. It takes us a really, really long way. But inherently, with what we're doing in the circular economy, the resources that we are pulling out of the ground are finite. There is no way around that. These systems are not being regenerated. There is only so much time that we can spend pulling this out of the ground. And if we don't do something now, all of a sudden our children's children have nothing in the supply chain. There will just be nothing there, like an empty supermarket shelf. And they can't build anything for their children to make sure they thrive. So I think that's the heart of what's important about it.
Yeah, no, great, thank you for that. And Louise, just your thoughts on, if we agree it's really important to make the shift, and we know we really don't have a choice, we have to make the shift because the resources are finite, and we really need to do better for future generations. Where are we currently placed in New Zealand about making that shift?
Yeah, so context is important, right? So globally, the world is about 8.6% circular as measured by the Circular Gap Report. There's a number of markets around the world that have used that. It's been running for about 5 years. Does anyone in the room know how circular New Zealand is? Has anyone done the study? Anyone filled in a RFP for the government to work out how circular it is? Has anyone measured an infrastructure project on how circular it is? I'm a bit blind, but I don't think I've seen anyone put their hand up.
There's not a lot of movement out there.
No, not a lot of movement, and
long
they're
way.
awake. So we have no data. None of that has been commissioned. What Saya talks about in terms of contracts, that's my contract for New Zealand, right? I'm a circular economy designer. I work with ministries. I work with projects. I work with the likes of you guys. Where's the data? Where are we working with? So that's a big gap. There's been a really significant focus on cleaning up the mess at the end, and strong support around looking at what infrastructure is required, and my hope for businesses like Saya is supporting those and connecting those businesses that can do something about it at that end, right? And that has been the focus. But we have had a number of private business leaders in this market, and that's what I'm actually seeing as the driving force here in New Zealand, is those individuals within organisations that can't stomach this any longer, that go, this next project I'm working on is going to be a circular one, and they fight tooth and nail internally to make that happen. They don't have all the answers, and they're very confident internally about saying, we don't know what that will look like, but these are the outcomes I know we will get to. And I could call them all out in the room. I've got a friend over here from HEB who came and joined me at a circular economy lab I ran, and they were one of the leaders that stepped up in 2020 to build the capability in this space. And my hope is that there will be many more, because the circular economy will be shaped in New Zealand by business and by individuals who want to make a change.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And sort of moving on from there, I'm really interested from a business owner's perspective, around what shifts need to happen to further support your initiatives that you've been working on in your business to create a little bit more of a circular economy approach?
Just watching the time is ticking, so I'll be quick.
Russian.
As a business, we're now in 5 years, we're the largest deconstruction company in New Zealand in 5 years. Our clients are Kāinga Ora, they're big, they're not small. We're dealing with big contracts. But to get there was difficult and hard. Because I came in with the thinking that I'm going to save the world. But there's a lot of barriers along the way. So to make those changes, we had to adapt what we do as a business, but what do you do as where the companies you're working on. Because I see the circular economy is we have to be able to use, whether it's the waste or the procurement, as you said, the contracts, I'll go back into that, to be able to help our communities. And how do you do that? It's, as Louise mentioned, through contracts. So we need to go, how are we going to manage that? How are we going to get the bang for buck on our contracts, and it does good? So for me, it's we need to, because we can't be a handout country. It's a hand up, and I truly believe that this is where we're heading to. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that answer, Sia. I'm also interested if anyone's got any thoughts around if there's sort of more training or uplifting capability that the sector requires on the ground to sort of better understand what we're trying to achieve. Anyone want to take that question on?
Yeah, I can take it. So we believe one of the biggest drivers towards accelerating a circular economy around the world is building capability. All the data suggests coming out of organisations that everyone believes that sustainability should be part of their role, but they don't have the capability to be making those decisions. It's complex, it's moving fast. So how do we support that? And in 2020, alongside Tātaki Auckland Unlimited and Ministry for the Environment, we started New Zealand's first circular economy lab, which we call X Labs. And in that lab, businesses bring a challenge. So it's really important to think practically about circular economy. We can all talk about the theory we could all talk about the theory. But when businesses come, they bring a challenge that they're working on, and they have to unlock that challenge using circular economy strategies and then pitch it to their stakeholders, to their board. And organisations have done that. So Fern Farms has pitched to their board, what would a circular economy do when you apply that to the meat processing plants and the evolution of infrastructure and how it uses water through Alternity? And they've worked on that. And the board has approved that work, and now it's a piece of work. And they did that because they brought a team to X Labs and built the capability of the organisation to answer that question.
Yeah, great. Brad, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I might just add from a sense of being on projects, sitting in a room and getting asked the question, what is circular? What does that even start to look like? Engineering teams, as you'll appreciate, very numbers focused. So what's my circularity score? How do I get there? What's the percentages that we need to do? What does a good project even look like? And to Louise's point, that data just isn't there. It just doesn't exist. So when you're under the time pressures, you're under the budget pressures of a day-to-day project, it often gets pushed to the side because it is hard to quantify that circularity. What we really need is a baseline. We need that data so that projects can say, well, this is a baseline of a good circular outcome. We want to beat it. We want to prove that we're at the top. But at the moment, those baselines just simply don't exist. I think that's a big gap to really achieving what we need to achieve.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. Now, without wanting to go down the rabbit hole of sort of legislation and policy, there has been a question that's been sent through which sort of lines up around some of the challenges about moving to a circular economy where some of our requirements for materials that are used within construction projects specify virgin raw materials. And I've been in conversations about this before. It seems to be a real barrier for the industry to make the shift. Any wise words from the panel about how that can happen? How do you make it? How do you make that change?
Sorry, we're talking about from the policies?
Yeah, I mean, there are not only from sort of the policy and the legislation changes that are being discussed through the Waste Minimisation Act review, the RMA review that's coming through. We've got lots of red tape that seems to tie us up and really stop us making the shift. Then we have particular standards which the construction sector has to deal with as well, and they're also very constrained around the opportunity to move to circularity. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry if I can do it. So it's two things, policy and business. Because policies and business needs to follow it, I believe. Again, I've been through this many, many times, and you know, policy. There is policies in there currently, and there's others, which is awesome. But we need businesses and people inside those businesses to work through and, you know, where they go and get some learning from Louise and her help there about how those new policies will help your business, because we're lacking in that part, the business working in. One thing that I wanted to also, again, I'm not here to advertise Kāinga Ora, but they've come a long way, and I've worked with them. They've come a long way to change, and they're a big beast, but I'm telling you that they've led some really good some direction through the waste initiative, like 80% reduction in the waste in the houses. It's working, but businesses are still not coming to the party. So it's working, but a bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
I mean, practically speaking, you know, someone told me this a really long time ago before I started circularity. They said, go through open doors. There's going to be parts of regulation and policy that you could hit your head against for the next 10 years and not change. But there's going to be other parts that have loopholes associated with that you can get breakthroughs on. So my advice around that stuff is to go through open doors. Remember the insight that you can design it out. So materiality and the use of virgin materials is only one application of the circular economy. You can be thinking about, do we need 5 walls? Can 4 do? Right, that reduces the amount of material extraction we're doing, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about reusing waste as an input. It has multiple ways of thinking about how we build, what we construct with, and how we use those materials and keep it on a full life cycle. I had a conversation about roading when we started. Sorry to call it out. And, you know, so roading, there's been lots of experiments with using recycled materials in roading, for instance, and the industry seems to be really excited by what that potential is. There's people that pull aggregate off the road and recycle it and turn it into new roads, right? The question is the design question still remains, what is the purpose of that road? Who is using the road? What do we need the road for? And in fact, you know, we've got economies around the world that are putting roads for heavy vehicles underground, and roads on the surface are being designed for walking only. We need to go back to think about what is the purpose and what is the role of that, because we're only just going to dance around the edges if we're thinking, I'm going to put 10% recycled content into my road. We're missing the real value of the circular economy and ultimately the impacts that we can create.
Yeah, thanks, Louise. It does sort of, I think Sam earlier on was doing in his presentation a great slide which really said the biggest impact you can have is really in the design phase, the planning phase. Ask the question, do you actually need this or not? So yeah, absolutely. There's another question that's just sort of come through on from the audience here, which is really to do with data. And I had a question in the back of my mind, just hearing some of the previous discussion too around capturing really good data to make better informed decisions. The question is really around what role does sort of digital technology play in accelerating us towards a more circular economy? I'm not sure, Brad, did you want to correct that?
I can pitch it there. I think it's absolutely the key, and definitely from an engineering perspective. The ultimate goal is that all buildings, all infrastructure is modelled. It's all electronic. I should be able to press a button and it tell me exactly how circular these things are. There is a lag at the moment with those kind of processes. There's long lags, which means you look at circularity metrics at the end of a design stage, when really you could be reviewing them on a weekly basis and reporting it back just like you report back budgets and program. The key to that is that use of technology. It's upskilling to make sure that people can use it in the right way, understand it, but it's just simply being able to report on the circularity metrics throughout a project, for example, that will allow you to change over time, monitor, set metrics, understand what's actually happening.
Yeah.
I can build on that.
Thanks, Louise.
Thanks, Brad. We work with 6 circular by design methods to explore circular strategies on projects, and 2 of them are related to technology, and they have 2 different roles. One of them we call networked participation, and it's based off what we've seen in the digital transformation, where digital enables you to network connections rapidly at scale. You put a digital marketplace that connects people who want to sell something with people who want to buy something, and immediately you have a business like Trade Me or eBay. It scales it, and all that went in the middle was basically digital, a digital technology platform, right? How do we take some of what we've learned over there through digital transformation into the circular economy space to allow greater marketplaces for the use of materials that are renewable, that can be recycled, that can be reused? So how do we turn that on its head and take advantage of that? Digital transformation will enable us to do that. And that lifts it out of our communities that are collecting the bricks, that are collecting the pieces of MDF, and people are coming and picking it up. It takes it from that model to a global model, right? And the second one we call embedded intelligence. And this relates to the issues across supply chains and being able to bring trust and transparency to the things that we're sourcing on the other side of the world, and to when we're ordering it and having it delivered to our sites or our homes. And a really good example is a business called Everledger. And essentially, Leanne Kemp started that business looking at the diamond industry and saying, how do I deliver transparency and trust through blockchain to the diamond industry? Because at the time she started, it was women in the mines who were mining the diamonds, and they were literally handing them off for peanuts, and then those diamonds ended up on the global market. And digital technology and embedded intelligence transformed that industry through transparency. Wow. And we can do that same thing with infrastructure. So if we think about embedded intelligence and baking that digital technology through data, what are the materials we've used to build that building or that piece of infrastructure? Then we come back in 20 years' time or 100 years' time when we need concrete or when we need a finite material and we're no longer able to mine it. Where do we go find it? We find it in that building. And the only way we can do that is through embedded intelligence.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's a lot to think about and digest, isn't it? We've got only a couple of minutes left.
Sorry, I should have watched that when
No,
I'm done.
you're all good. You're all good. I really wanted the audience to take away something tangible as well, something real world from the conversation today. So I'm just wondering if each of you could provide a real short example of a project or an outcome that you've been a part of that is really, shows circularity or circular economy in its true essence.
Just quickly, so we're talking about data, so we've done that for the last 5 years. We talk about that's our IP, and we have shared it with government, our IP for free. Some of you consultants are probably saying I'm nuts. I am. And, you know, we're talking about how do we collect data and changing it. And I can tell you, working with Kāinga Ora, we basically changed the way they do things in deconstruction. I can tell you how many people are affected, how many families it's fed in that particular project is what you're talking about. And we use Procore to do that, and then we have reporting systems. I just wanted to finish up and say, look, you know, it's great to come to these things, but you have to take something away, all right? Every business or employee or managing director, we need to think about how do we use our business to do good, but also in return here, help our communities, because we are the community, all of us, and we are also the taxpayer. You know, I always use this term here, South Auckland can feed themselves, and I use South Auckland, I was raised in South Auckland. They can, you know, we need the circular economy to boost our families, our whānaus. We need the circular economy to work, and we don't have to. It's a lot of BS to say that it costs more. It doesn't. I've proven it. I've proven it to the government. It doesn't cost more. But also we need to change the procurement process so it becomes a value to your business, to what you do, a circular economy. There's no point going to these things here if you don't, you know, nothing changes in the policy, but it can. You can do it. A stroke of your pen, you can do something with this. You know, does that contract feel right? I'm about to purchase this. Does it feel like I'm giving back to the economy? How is it? How do you choose the contract? Think about that. How you buy, how you sign a contract. What's it going to do? You don't have to be a business owner. Everybody can do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Kia ora. Yeah, well done.
Thank you.
Well spoken. Brad, final comments.
I might share two real conversations that I had on two separate projects, and it's all about risk and reward. The first conversation that I had was on a large infrastructure project, and the conversation was, Brad, we've got these targets for our reused material, but I've got a piece of research here that says that, yeah, it'll work, but nobody has ever put this in a road before, and it's worked for 50 years and there's zero risk. This contract, every single bit of the risk is on me, so I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go and get dispensation for that requirement because there's no risk-sharing mechanism for what I'm being asked to do. And I think that is a really important part of the conversation where we spent many, many, many years pushing risk onto maybe a single operator. That operator sends it down the line wherever they can. But there needs to be a true conversation about if we want to go somewhere and we want to go somewhere new, that means doing new things, that means higher risk, and we need to share that risk. The second conversation was a much shorter one on a building and a discussion with a large developer. And I'd gone through and I said, here's your benefits, here's the value of circular economy, could be to the building. And he said, Brad, is there a 5-star circularity sticker that I can put on my door? And I said, no. And he said, well, I can't sell that, so I'm not interested. Which was a brutal conversation, and it's part of the cynic world and it's part of the late adopter world, but it's a fact. So how do we reward those that are actually going through the process? How do we have a bit of carrot as well as stick to make sure that it sticks and that we're heading where we need to go and that people come along the journey at the same time?
Great. Thanks, Brad. Louise, just final couple of words.
If you want 5 stickers on your project, I can give you the circularity baseline measurement score, and I can give you the strategies to improve that score to get those 5 stickers. We've done it across all sorts of businesses, and we hope to build what we're calling the Circular Economy 100 here in Aotearoa, which is 100 businesses that are using circular economy principles and measuring their resources from a circular economy perspective, publishing their baseline metrics, and then being public about the journey that it takes to get them there. Because that's what we need. We need transparency around what a baseline project looks like for circularity.
Yep.
And we can measure that for you, and we need transparency around what it takes those projects and organisations to do that. So please let me know if you're looking for the 5 stars.
Great.
I'll let them know.
Well, thank you very much for your time today, Louise, Brad and Sia. Can we all just give a round of applause to our speakers?